Welcome to Innovation Rebels, the podcast where we shatter conventional thinking and challenge the status quo in pursuit of groundbreaking business ideas and transformative changes for humanity and the earth. Join us for exclusive insights, inspiring interviews, and behind-the-scenes stories from visionary entrepreneurs to eco-friendly tech industry pioneers who are reshaping entire sectors to impact investors. Our guests are rule breakers, risk takers, and trailblazers who have defied the odds to achieve extraordinary business success on their own terms. Each episode, we dive deep into the minds of the most audacious business leaders who refuse to accept the limitations imposed by tradition and instead embrace disruption as a catalyst for progress. Our podcast is tailor-made for visionary entrepreneurs and forward-thinking individuals who crave unconventional wisdom and seek to revolutionize their industries. If you're tired of the same old strategies and ready to challenge the boundaries of innovation, Innovation Rebels is your platform for inspiration, insight, and empowerment. And now please welcome Swanet Kunzi, your host and guide on this journey into the uncharted territories of future thinking and innovation.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, Innovation Rebels. My name is Swanet and I'm your host. Today my guest is Mia Jafari. She is the founder of Fluid Labs. So welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious, how did you become the person you are now, and how was Fluid Labs born out of all of this?
Well, interesting question. And actually, I talk about all this in my upcoming book, but actually I studied art and design, and I've always been a very creative person. So creativity was always, my passion and my biggest joy. I never really thought that I would go into the world of innovation. I mean, growing up, it just wasn't something that I thought about. But I was very creative, very curious. I actually worked in photography and design. Then I set up a fashion business, which was a fast fashion, ethical fashion line. And I did that for about 4 years. And then I think towards the last few years, I realized that my passion was much more about the ideation and developing ideas. And so when my business ended, I really felt like it was a time for me to more go into my passion, which was more about building ideas. So anyway, for the past 10 years, I've been developing entrepreneurship programs, primarily in the Middle East, from my own passion experiences of setting up a business and really all the learnings and all the mistakes I made. I mean, when I first started, it was all about taking my mistakes, my learnings, and helping other people learn from them. And over the 10 years, it grew and grew. And so I started working with different organizations and foundations. So 10 years later, I realized that really it was a good time then for me to look at setting up my own consultancy. And what Fluid Labs does is I work with different partners on innovation programs that really impact the well-being of people, planet, and profits. So I have a collaboration team and partnerships in place, and I support organizations that want to innovate with more impact.
So this is amazing. And I can see that the world needs this right in this moment. Like, when all the old systems are breaking down, there needs to be something else that can be created. And as you said, like, it's for the 3 Ps. It is a time of how can we, at the one hand, seeing like AI is coming up and quantum technology is coming up. And at the same time, we are human beings who are creative. And how can we use all of this kind of mixture in this time to create something that is supportive for humanity, while at the same time being innovative and using upcoming technology, for example?
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. And I think one of the things that I see this right now is a lot of fear. So people think that, AI is coming and it's going to take over jobs, or they get super excited without knowing the risks associated. And I think what I really think and what I really try and focus on is like, in this new era, we need to really focus more on our innate human creativity, that uniqueness that we all have, our ability to connect and empathize and feel compassion and empathy, and really bring that within the innovation process, because that's what's is missing. There's this big kind of excitement about, for example, yesterday I had this conversation about a company that's creating robots that come and help you with your housework. So it's all this exciting, tech and everyone. But I think we're not thinking what is the kind of consequences on that. And I think where humans really need to come in is really like leveraging that interconnectedness we feel, the creativity, and think, how can I use these emerging technologies as my ally and my collaborator, not to fear it, but actually collaborate with it, work with it to create innovations that, better impact all.
So there have always been times when we had innovations and new things coming up. And I think people, when electricity came into their houses, also had the same feeling like, we don't know what is going on here and it's dangerous and we have to fear that. And now we can't live without. So I think like what is coming next will have the same kind of circumstances, and it will be another level for humanity as well in their own evolutionary process, while it is supported or can be supported by technology. Yeah, so how can we overcome this kind of fear that perhaps is there, or this is something new, we don't know what is going to happen with our lives? Now you said, no, perhaps AI will take our job. If it comes here, it can perfectly clean the house. I'm fine with that. But at the same time, of course, there will be jobs, even like creative jobs, like design, perhaps, that will be taken away from people. So how can we overcome this kind of fear that perhaps is there?
No, thank you. Really great question. I think, based on the research that I've done and the kind of contemplation and thinking that I've done, I think we've been leaning towards the idea, and I think this is related to our education system, that, we are the things that we memorize, or the processes that we know, or the data that we can kind of collect. And I think we have to remember we're not machines, and, we have a different type of creativity, a different type of purpose. And I think where I see a lot of people fearing is because they're staying in that old education system that, you are what you remember, what you revise, the history, da, da, da. And I think to thrive and overcome this fear, we need to remember that there's something much more unique about human beings, that, we have a creativity that's more abundant and more, a little bit messier, the way what I like to think about it in this way, that the greatest artists of all time, whether it was Van Gogh or Frida Kahlo or, what they created wasn't the status quo. It was something very different. And it didn't come from this place of linearity. No one looked at Van Gogh and go, oh, yes, that's amazing art. And I think we need to lean more into that spirit of the artist, the creative within us, and bring that into that kind of collaboration in this new era. So I think how we must do it, I've created 7 principles. One is that, we take responsibility that we're part of the co-creating with life. It's like we take responsibility for our role in life. Then I talk about, we must innovate with reverence and purpose, really reverence for, our past, our history, our cultures, our sense of connection with Earth, and with purpose of what we want to create. So it's not just innovation status quo. Then I talk a little bit about, being curious. We need to be open and adaptable, and we need to, have this mindset of, asking the right questions and letting us lead somewhere new. We need to have this messy creativity, allow our minds to get messy and irregular. And I talk about interconnectedness. We need to feel the sense of interconnectedness with each other, with nature. I talk a little bit about, weaving ourselves back to life. So my 7 principles are really about spiritual principles, I would say, about how as individuals, we can, upskill ourselves in a way that we can create the collaborations with technology and not be fearful, participate in life, participate in this new era, whether it's with AI, whether it's for quantum computing, whether it's for the risks of, or what will climate change bring. It's not to fear it, but work with it, lean with it, collaborate with it, and know that, whatever happens, if we lean into our creative selves, we'll be fine.
I love this messy creativity.
Thank you.
Can you describe it a little bit more? Because what I see is that we normally have this linear thinking, like the time is linear, what we process is linear, but it is difficult to become, for example, in an understanding of an exponential function, for example. How can we become more messy, as you call that, in our creativity, so that we can step out what is the norm and create something that is, totally out of the box?
Yeah, no, good question. Thank you. Well, actually, I was talking to a colleague, I think it was last Friday, about this, and he leads a lot of innovation projects in Saudi Arabia, and I always thought, well, how is he? There's something in his mindset that's a bit different, and we were talking about it, and he said, to do these kind of innovations that are really kind of radical and different, you need to be a child of chaos. And I kind of thought that's really interesting. So the child of chaos. And I think when you lean into your creative self, you're kind of okay with chaos, you know. And I would give an example to say that, you know, when I run projects, I do, you know, you do the project plan and you do this, you know, step, but the reality is things don't really run that way. So I think the creative thinker or the messy creative thinker, you know, in a way has lots of tabs open. So I would describe it like this, you know, your mind has lots of tabs open and you can open that one and you can get some information from there and then use it and then take another tab. And it's just, you know, it's not linear thinking. It's something that is, I would say, more around like, how do you take all this information that's there and synthesize it in a way that actually executes? So I don't know if I've explained it well, but I think we all have it. I think, you know, it's just that I think we've been programmed not to have it. And I think some of us maybe have more of this messy creativity than others, but I think the education system, societies that we brought up, you know, it's like you play the rules step by step. So I think when I was thinking, again, my education system was very much about processes and, you know, you did this step and you did that step. And if you came up with something a little bit different, it wasn't necessarily respected or, and I think, you know, the more we have this kind of education, the more it kind of gets taken out of us. But I think we all have that. And I think the way that we need to connect back with our messy creativity is actually to connect with nature because I feel like nature is our biggest source of innovation, of creativity, of things, you know, that are irregular to what we know. So even just like, you know, looking at a plant or looking at a tree or smelling a flower, it gives your senses something different. So I think the way we connect with our messy creativity is to spend more time with nature, organizations that are self-organizing, you know, a tree, a forest, a rock, you know, and just kind of being around that kind of environment a bit more, I think really helps get that messy creativity. But ultimately to think it's okay, you know, the messiness is where the real kind of innovation magic happens, you know. If I think about, for example, maybe it's not the best example, but when Red Bull first came, you know, no one thought that Red Bull was going to be you know, second biggest soft drink after Coke. But there was something intuitive, something unique about it. So I think the greatest innovations of our time don't necessarily happen because it's logic and order. It's tuning into a different kind of intellect, a different type of creativity. And we need to create spaces within our innovation processes in our lives, in our systems for these non-linear ideas to come through and not to challenge them, not to say, you know, not to criticize them too soon. So I hope I've answered your questions, but I think my key point would be, I think, you know, we need to go back into nature, connecting with self-organizing, you know, objects, ecosystems, and really kind of feel that and then bring that into our innovation process and know that we're all inherently creative.
Yeah, perfectly. So I can totally understand, like I'm an engineer by training, and
Yes.
this is like a very analytic and process-oriented mindset. And at the same time, I have also this creative part as I'm an intuitive. So I
Yeah.
can access the quantum field for downloading information that have a high possibility already in the quantum field. And bringing this together, it's for me the way of thinking out of the box. Like there is something that is there that wants to be presented, and at the same time, we can bring it into a fluid structure, so to say. And then we have this kind of messy creative process because it is outside of what is already existing, but it is in the emerging future existing. And I can see children, you know, you said somewhere during this interview already, children still have that. They start to play and you can see like they come up with ideas that adults don't have anymore because we are so trained and educated in the system. But they are the ones that find solutions to questions that perhaps questions we never have asked before. And I love that when children ask over and over, why is it this way and why is it this way? And yeah, we get challenged by these children that are still so intuitive and playful with that.
Mm-mm. No, 100%. I completely agree with that. And actually, I talk about this in my upcoming book. That my friend's son, Rashid, he's 6 years old, and when he plays with Lego, it's very intuitive. You know, it's not like I follow, you know, step one, step two. You know, he makes a mistake, he goes back, he redoes it, he makes something new, and I think when I've observed him, you know, make Lego, there's something very intuitive, and it's like lacking that fear of it going wrong. And I think as we get older, it's kind of like taken out of us. But I love what you said. I think I completely agree. It's like, it's not, I would say, to actually execute an innovation and do the work that we're doing, it's not enough just to be messy and creative, 100%. I think you need that logical, linear thinking that, and then you kind of mix the different brain parts together, the heart and the mind. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to bring the heart and the mind together. And, because I think if you just go into the messy creativity, you'll just have lots of things, but you just somehow need to bring them together and make it into something. And that's where the left and the right side of the brain come together. And, so I think that's a very, good point.
So, how is it that you start working with these organizations? Like, do they come to you with a certain kind of questions, or is it that you open up the field for a new process, that you go into a space where you say, okay, now we have our innovation lab here, we bring together experts and let's figure out what is one of the problems we have to solve. So how is this process starting?
Well, actually, I think for the past 10 years, every project that I've had has been very organic, and it's been literally just like following, what has come. So I've never really looked for the roles or the projects. If someone has come to me with something, and generally how it works, and this is how I work, is someone will come, an organization or someone I know that works with an organization will say, like, I want to run an entrepreneurship program. How can you help me with it? Or, I want to run a startup program, or we're doing a startup program. Could you help with it? So I often feel like I tend to plug into a particular piece of that innovation project based on the skill sets I have. Or sometimes, there'll be a creative industries conference and they want to look for someone who can help them with the strategy so often people, they come to me, and I think that's the best way. I've done it in the other way where I've created like my own plan, and this is the kind of organization I want to work with, and this is what I want to do. But I just kind of go to the other side now and say, let the projects come to me, and I trust that process. But bearing in mind, my experience is so broad, I seem to do very different projects, and each one is new, and I'm really open to that as well.
Are there certain kind of industries you're working in? As you said, it's like for the 3Ps. This is the outcome, the impact. But are there certain kind of industries you're specialized in or you prefer working with?
No, not at all. But actually, about 8 years ago, I was working with an ex-colleague, and she ended up in a completely unexpected industry. But we were actually doing social innovation programs together, and then she went to work with the Emirates Group to run an incubator for aviation, travel, and tourism. And I just got a call one day from her saying, would you be interested in coming and joining our team? And then, it was a small project that led to, multiple programs, a physical hub, and more partners. And but actually, it was in aviation, travel, and tourism, which was completely unexpected for me. I still say I don't know much about aviation, and people say you shouldn't say that after 6 years. But actually, because I spent 6 years leading innovation in aviation, travel, and tourism, that seems to be the verticals that comes to me a lot. And recently, a little bit more on real estate. I've done projects around the creative industries, banking sector. But I think, the principles are the same. Obviously my passions are very much in the creative industries because that's the industries that I know and I can get really excited about. But at the same time, I think, innovation is innovation, and sometimes it's quite nice to go into a new industry. For me, I feel like one of the things that I used to really feel was like something that pulled me down a little bit was that I didn't understand the industry. So when I went to aviation, I came from a creative background, and I'd done projects around social innovation. And I was like, well, I don't really understand innovation. It's not my area. But then what I realized is I need to lead in the fact that it's okay, because there are so many people who understand that industry. I think our job as the innovators or the catalysts of innovation is sometimes just to come in with a different mindset and bring that mindset into that industry. So long story short, I feel like I'm industry agnostic, though I have worked a lot in aviation, travel, and tourism the last few years.
This is super interesting. So from my experience, I'm educated in medicine, and I said I'm an
Yeah.
engineer in environmental technology. So during my life, I was very much focused in science. And so for today, it's about health and environmental technology and sustainability, but also about silent luxury. And I felt that every time I step into a new project where I don't really know the industry, this is super helpful because I am not programmed what the industry thinks.
Mm,
And therefore, I can ask totally different
mm,
questions for the innovation process because if I
mm,
would have been trained in this industry, then of course, I would already have kind of an idea how this industry works and how solutions are in this industry. But coming
mm,
from a totally different perspective, it's like, okay, you never have asked, for example, this kind of question, like, why
mm,
not? And you can start exploring from a different angle.
mm.
I think sometimes it's super helpful not
I
being in
think.
this industry too much because people you're working with are in the industry. They know about the technology, they know about what they're creating, but they are at the same time also stuck to their own education within their
Mm,
industry.
mm. No,
So,
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I realized, in my experience, the fact that I wasn't, educated in that industry, actually gave me a different perspective, which was really needed. So I think that's why I think the more in the future of education or as we move forward, we need more curious, creative thinkers. We don't necessarily need those kind of, the people that are very detailed or, I mean, it's great to have it, fantastic, but I think we need to have people who are more horizontal in their approach as well and can think about things in different ways, ask the right questions, are curious, I think, ultimately. And I think that's where collaboration with technology and AI really happens because AI will have all that kind of information with it. What we have to do is like probe it and ask the right questions and bring the right pieces together. And that's kind of an intuitive, creative intelligence that I think we need to tap more into, like you said.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, so how I see it is like we are the ones that have like a T shape. Yeah,
Yes.
I call myself even a T-shaped personality because there are some areas where I have deep knowledge, like everything that is about
Mm,
science, but at the same time, I can understand a lot of other sectors because I've worked with them and I know their wording and I know their thoughts and their mindset. So it is for me, I can bridge between different
mm,
areas. And I
mm,
think this is also something that you are doing, like bringing together different sectors or different mindsets and building bridges between them, like for the entrepreneurs
mm,
or for the startups.
No, no, definitely. I mean, that's the future kind of skill or mindset that I think we do need to foster, be the detail in one place, but have that horizontal. And the horizontal is I would say the creativity, the curiosity, the empathy, the problem solving, I would say the softer skills. And so, I think we need to all kind of have a bit more of those skills as we move forward because we're going to really miss them. And I see in my career or my career trajectory, what has helped me is having those particular skills, like the horizontal skills. And because what I trained in art and design and I mean, some elements I've used, but very rarely have I used those skills in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, you already said that AI can support this kind of innovation process, especially if it is about having access to knowledge. Yeah, AI is programmed and will be programmed by people more and more so that it has all the knowledge that we need and we can access it very
Mm,
easily. And at the same time, we are the ones that are training it. And I've read we use a pre-interview form. So I have read in your pre-interview form that you are training your AI at the moment and see how this can come up with a creative process.
mm.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm not huge. I'm not techie by any shape or form, but I've been kind of interested to see. how this works. So I decided, okay, I'm going to, I create my little ChatGPT AIs and really even give it a name. So like I give it a name like Lola. Lola is my cat's name. So I thought, oh, if I give, my ChatGPT that's helping me with my writing a name that it resonates with me on a kind of more loving level, will that affect the way I talk to it and the responses I get? So little things like that that I've been practicing with. Yeah, it's really interesting to see like, if you humanize it or if you're talking more nicely to it or, what responses do you get? And I have noticed, I don't know whether it's my way of communicating with it or that it's just started to know me a little bit better and respond better to me. So it's kind of that has been really interesting. I honestly don't believe in over reliance on technology, but I think now we're in a world where it's happening, like it's going to happen. And if we are fearful of it, then, we're going to be left behind. And I see a lot of fear, as I mentioned, like someone that I actually will be interviewing um, for my podcast and my book. He talks a lot about AI and he wrote an article and I think he had like 1,000 comments and his comment was like, AI will help more people be creative. And there was such a backlash to what he said. And he actually ended up getting death threats and it was really horrible. And I couldn't really understand why, but I think, if we fear it and say it has to go away, it's not going to go away. But if we say, okay, let's collaborate, participate, work with AI in a way that humanizes it and make it part of our creative process, I think that's the way forward. And that's what I've been trying to do with my AIs.
And how is this working? So I know that AI will learn, no question about that. And I'm training my ChatGPT as well to understand me better. And I even asked the question, like, after working together now for a while, is there anything that you know about me that I'm not aware of? Interesting question. And the answer was even more interesting.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's becoming kind of intelligent after a
Mm,
while and is getting better in understanding who I am and what I ask it for. So it
mm,
even comes up with more creative questions when I ask
mm,
it for. So I think that it is important to see how AI is able to learn in a way to support us in our creative process.
yeah.
And
Mm,
um, as we are the ones that are co-creating the
mm,
future, of course, the way we treat the AI and teach it and give it some support to learn by itself, it of course can then become supportive for us and not destroying humanity as a lot of
mm,
people are seeing it.
No, I completely agree. I mean, AI is a reflection of the human consciousness. So I think, really, if we don't want AI to be dystopic, we need to work on our own consciousness. So that's just, and I think obviously that's thousands of years we've been trying to do it. It hasn't worked out. But I think really rather than fear, the future, fear AI, fear technology, we need to really look inside of ourselves and think about how we're behaving and do we have the qualities and attributes that we would want this AI to have. And I think there's a big questions, but I think those are what I think are calls for us right now, rather than being fear mode. Because yes, AI is right now a tool, but it has the potential to be so much more. And I think a lot of futurists are predicting that in the next 20 years, AI's intelligence is going to be the equivalent of it being Albert Einstein and we being an ant. And then the big kind of existential question that people have said is, what stops Albert Einstein from crushing an ant? And it's like, and then it's like, you build with compassion, make it love humanity, make it be, have a consciousness that's about, interconnectedness and all these things that, I mean, they're big questions, but I think, we cannot train the AI to do that if we don't have it ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. So how can we become the person that we want AI to see in the future?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I actually talk a little bit about this in my coming book, which is that I had this very interesting experience where I did an enlightenment intensive retreat, which was, looking at the question, who am I? So it was we had 4 days in silence where we just answered, who am I? Who am I? And towards the end, I kind of came up with this realization that I'm like an infinite creative being that's interconnected, da, da, da. And I kind of thought, so that's the feeling of who am I? I'm this creative being that's infinitely creating and interconnected, and I had this feeling. And I think the more we kind of go into that we're this creative being that's interconnected, and we're here to kind of build bridges and create, the more we can train the AI to be the taskmaster, do the things that we cannot do, and we lean into more of that. So, but if we rely on the fact that we're going to be doing the same jobs as AI and AI is going to take our job and da, 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 then I think we are doomed.
I can imagine that not a lot of people will have a silent retreat for 4 days,
No.
answering the question, who am I? How is it possible in, I would say, normal life to come closer to this information or to the insight about the true identity and then understanding about the interconnectedness?
I think it's, a good question. And this is really, a hard, tough journey. I mean, and I sort of, my book Collaborating on Life, and I talk about this, which is I wasn't this person that was on this journey or used to think like this. It was only about 7 years ago that I started. So I am in a way the every woman or the every man. And I feel that it's, so I completely understand. There was no way, 10 years ago I was going to go on a 4-day retreat and ask who am I. Um, I think my journey is that I've just leaned into things. So I trust that if something feels good, I'll do it. So the retreat, it just suddenly came up. I had no expectation. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just said yes. And I think that's the curiousness in us. So I think with the principles that I talk about, I really hope that these are the principles that we can all embed into our lives, which is, the sense of, yes, I'll ask questions, I'll be inquisitive, I'll look at signs. But I think the main thing about feeling this interconnectedness and which is hard because life is brutal, and I talk about this, and especially in the corporate world, you've got 100 deadlines and pressure and da da da, and this, like, how do you feel this? It's really hard, and I think it's just about creating moments for reflection and pause in our day. I think that's the easiest way, and then to sort of see life or as opportunities to guide us. But of course, it's super hard to get to that. But I think if we're on that path of awareness, it's just about creating, I think, moments of self-reflection and pause throughout the day to think about these things, to reflect on what's happening in our life and what is it teaching us. And then kind of, I think those moments help us to accelerate what we're doing. And I think that's why all the religions, they talk about prayer, they talk about meditation. Islam is all about moments of pause and reflection. Whatever you do, you stop, you pray, you connect with the higher power, God. You ask God for guidance, you surrender. So when we learn these things that religion is giving us, there is moments that are already there for us to pause, reflect, so that we can have those inner guidance for the purpose that, yes, we want to accelerate what we're doing, but we want to do it the proper way. We want to accelerate for greater good, not just for the sake of it.
Mm.
I hope I answered that.
Yeah, of course. So it's about moments of stillness that people can really sit and contemplate on questions, and perhaps they can journal or meditate to find these moments of with their higher self within, and understand about what is present to them in this moment. I think we are all in a rush. We're all busy, and as you said, in corporate world, there are timelines, and we are under stress. And in these kind of circumstances, if we are in this kind of frequency, we cannot really connect within, and we cannot be creative at all. Like, if we are in stress, we are not creative. This is nothing that comes together. So
definitely,
so even if we are in our work, there needs to be moments where we can have stillness and see, okay, what is the next most important thing that we have to do, and what it is that has priority at this moment. We are all overwhelmed with tasks, with to-do lists and with timelines, and at the same time, we are not able to really look through the process to see the bigger picture. Like, for me, it's often that when I have these moments of stillness and contemplate about question, and if the question is who am I, this could be the question, but it could be other questions as well. For me, it's like I get this eagle view. Like I can see like the pattern, the whole picture that is there. And then, of course, no, then I can focus on details. Like it's really the eagle eye that is seeing the whole landscape, and then it is seeing perhaps the rabbit down there on the ground. And this helps to, for me, it helps to find solutions that are normally not aware in my conscious mind. But they are either in my subconscious mind or they are in the quantum field, which I can download them. So I think these moments of stillness and contemplation about what is now present, what is the next step that I have to do, what is the answer that needs to be downloaded, will help also in organizations on everyday life.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, that's wonderful. It's like, and I think you said it perfectly. It's the eagle view. Like you have this high level view and then you can zoom in, zoom in onto a detail. And I think, that I think is a real skill and I think really needed because like I say, I know from my own experience and you get caught up in, if you work in an organization, you work with people, you get caught up in other people's dramas, the systems, bureaucracy, and it's very difficult then to very easy then to lose your vision or what are you trying to create. So I think having that high level perspective of what you're doing and then being able to zoom in, that's a real skill. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I would like to go now a little bit to the book you mentioned several times. So let us know, first of all, what is the title, but also what will people find within this book?
Yeah. So it's my first book that I've been working on now for nearly a year. But hopefully by next summer it'll be out. It's called Collaborating with Life and Embracing Innovation as an Inner Journey to Build Products and Services that Inspire the World. And I would say it's 50% of my own lived experiences, 30% entrepreneurship and 20% spiritual. And what I really talk about is how AI is an invitation for us to do things differently. So, with this immense superpower, this intelligence that, people are calling the prodigy of all of our intelligence, at our side as our ally, what is it that we can create together? And then I talk about that it could be dystopic or utopic. And if we want it to be utopic, we need to kind of more lean into that, lean into our humanness, our creativity, our intuition, and all the things that really make us human. And then I talk about that being something that we can tap into by our connection with nature, because nature is the infinite source of creativity and innovation, and we are nature ultimately. So that becomes the invitation for us to start doing things differently. And then I talk about the 7 principles that I have found of how we can collaborate with life, which are personal practices or things that I've seen from other people, but things that we can all do, a mindset that we can all approach. Everything, as I said, from taking responsibility for what happens in our life and feeling we're our co-creator of our experiences, all the way to the messiness of human creativity, the chaos, the stillness, the interconnectedness. And then, by practicing this mindset in our lives, how do we then, show up back into the innovation journey? How do we then collaborate with AI? How do we collaborate with each other? And what is it that we want to create? So I take that high level view of technology and, building these products. Then I go inwards to the inner journey that we must face. And then we go outwards into, okay, through these principles, what is it that we can create? So that's the idea. It's very much, I would say, a discovery journey. I've interviewed many people, from AI experts to earth elders to innovation experts to entrepreneurs, and it's really kind of like bringing that all together and then sharing my own lived experiences as well. So that's what I'm working on. I'm super excited, and I feel like it's a new dimension to innovation because as I always believe, we're not going to change how we do market sizing. We're not going to change how we do business modeling, and we're not going to change how we do investments. But I mean that stays. But I think what we can change is that kind of the way we show up in these processes.
Yeah, so it is so within, so without.
Yes.
Okay.
Innovation from within and without. But I don't do the without because I do it. That's my day-to-day job, and I was thinking about it, and I really felt like we don't need to reinvent the wheel on the out. It's very clear what we need to do from a process point of view, but it's a mindset and the inner journey that needs to change, and then we show up in a different way.
So I would like to go a little bit deeper into this journey. What is it that we need to change in our mindset? You already said, no, we need the moments of stillness and interconnectedness, but what is really the journey you see?
Yeah. So I think, what happens, and at the best, at the best we have a human-centric point of view. At the best we think we put humans at the big center. And that's at the best. I mean, we don't even do that sometimes. But what I say is, rather than putting us as the top of the pyramid, as humans, we need to think more collectively, which is like think more Earth-centric, put all species, all Earth at the center of what we create, and think about that with more reverence. And the spiritual journey, or the inner journey that we need to go through, is really, and I talk about this in my 7 principles, is really to start off with taking a little bit of the ownership of our lives, and just saying, what happens if I take 5%, even just 5%, responsibility for what's showing up in my life. And I talk about this from my own entrepreneurship experiences, where this has happened, where the same things have shown up in my life over and over again. And there was some moments when I was, aha, is it me, or is it like life? Why are these things showing up? So it's like the first step is really ownership, knowing that we're the responsible, or we're the co-creator of our experiences. And that is hard. That's not easy, but I think that's where I start with. And then from there, I think, once we take responsibility and we say, well, what if what I do is creating the experiences I'm having, even a small percentage, but what if I am responsible, how does that affect the way I do things? So that's my first step. And then I talk about innovating with reverence and purpose. I talk about my own experiences with people that I've interviewed, and really that, rather than just innovating for the sake of it, how do we innovate with things that really matter to us, impact our communities, our backgrounds. I talk about my own experiences of setting up a business. So these is like the journey that we go through. Then I talk about curiosity that we've discussed about, being open, having this kind of expansive mindset, and and then from there the creativity that we need to lean into the chaos of our creativity. At the same time, we need to have moments of stillness and reflection. So there's like different steps, and then the kind of all the feeling this interconnectedness with life. So that's the kind of journey in a way, the 7 steps. And then at the end, I put it all together and say, we need to marry the heart and the mind, and because it's great to be in this creative flow, as we said, but we need to do something with it, and then how do we drive change? What is that kind of, what do we need to do? And then we talk about what is the innovation that we bring. So I think it's my what I have found, but I think everyone's in a journey is different. With my 7 principles, I always also say they're interchangeable. They don't have to be in order. Someone might start with creativity and then go for the different phases. And the different people that I've interviewed, they use different principles. So not everyone is following those 7 principles. But I kind of found that this was the key 7 principles of of leading innovation within a journey. And it all starts with self-awareness. So it all starts with that kind of thing of like thinking, being more aware of our actions and how it's reflecting on the outer. And the very first question is that, who am I? Am I really this person here? My age, my nationality, all the imprints that people have given me, and which do bog us down, when we think about it, other people's projections of us, and this really does drag us down. So just letting those go and seeing ourselves as, a creative being, and even just saying, to yourself with a few affirmations, I am a creative being, I'm infinitely creating, and like, showing up as that, and just seeing how that kind of affects us. And I was gonna say it's a lifelong journey, but it's an exciting journey nonetheless.
It is absolutely. And I can see that, for example, my journey started when I was 8 years old and I had the near-death experience. At that time, I already was connected to the quantum field when I came back into my body. And it was always this feeling like, who am I? What am I? What part have I in this life, in the creation of life? I was always curious about that. And questioning the beliefs I had about life. So I was programmed as well in my family, of course, and my parents have been entrepreneurs as well, and so I've grown up in the office, so to say. And for me, it was like something like you always have to work. Beliefs about that. Work is hard. You always have to work, and I've seen my parents working long until the night. So there have been beliefs within me that needed reprogramming while I grow older and see like life can be different. And yeah, coming from different cultures, we all have our programming, of course, our beliefs that come perhaps with religion as well. So how can we reprogram this kind of stories we created around ourselves?
I think it's super hard, obviously. And I thank you for sharing, and I completely resonate with you. And I think, as you said, some people, are lucky and they have this aha moment. Not lucky, but it's, and I think one of my favorite books is, The Surrender Experiment by Michael J. Singer. And he talks about how he had this aha moment of, who am I? And that led him on this kind of actually complete surrender of life. And from that, he built this multi-million-pound dollar business, and that he had completely no expectation that he was going to do by just surrendering to life. I really recommend it. It's The Surrender Experiment. It's one of my favorite books. I think it's a hard journey, and I think but having these conversations is really important, and a little bit more self-awareness, a little bit more of, okay, so am I really what the people around me say I am? Is that all I'm capable of? Or is there something more? For me, it was actually going to Dubai about 10 years ago that I think was the real catalyst, because I also grew up in a family where, life was meant to be hard. And, my mum worked really hard, my dad. The British system is very much like you have to work hard and, pay your bills and be a little bit scared. And, like it's all very kind of safe and I think just going to Dubai was really a wake-up call for me, because I saw that people were thinking differently. There was a lot more ambition, and, impossible wasn't really a word. It was like, we build this, but we're going to build this, and da, da, da. And then I kind of saw people were living different lives, and no one really had that fear of like the unknown. People wanted to kind of leap into the unknown. So, and that kind of got me to change my mindset and go, well, what's different for me than these people? So if they can do it, I can do it too. I think we must surround ourselves, I think, with people that inspire us. I think that's the very first thing. Like, traditionally or conventionally, we just kind of gravitate to people who are like us. But I think they do say that if you really want change in your life, be around people that inspire you, who push you, who get you to think in a different way. So I think if we want to be on this journey, having a community is super important, or having someone that is inspirational to you, who has this mindset, who's living this life, and you look up to them. I think, role modeling that. But I think the key is like, surrounding yourself with people who inspire you to do that. And I noticed that when I went to Dubai, it was like my whole kind of environment changed, and I was like, thinking in a different way. And I think we don't have to all necessarily, pack our bags and go to a different country, but I think just being around people that inspire us a little bit more, and seeing how they're role modeling and the behaviors they have, and really helps them, and Steve Jobs, in a very amazing quote, and I think he was, he'd obviously gone to India and done a lot of like work on himself. He said, the world is built up by people no smarter than you. And then once you see that, it's a big realization. He had this beautiful quote around it. So I think the more we're around these people that inspire us and see, if they could think like this, so can we, is really important. And community. So at Fluid Labs, I have a WhatsApp group of like-minded people. We share inspiration. The community shares like workshop sessions they're doing. I have the podcast where I interview inspirational people, and it's just to get that content out there. So if people want to be on that journey, there is a resource, a community for them to tap into.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And this is also a reason why I have you as a guest on my podcast, to inspire my community.
Thank you, very honored.
And it's really what you said, like, there's another saying, we become the person that we surround ourselves with. Like the 5 people we mostly are surrounded by, this is how we become. And if you have a vision what you want to create, of course, tap into the field of these people and connect with them. Find a mentor, for example, who can support you in your journey, and see how he already achieved what you would like to achieve. And having a role model would also be an idea. Getting aware on your beliefs. Like if there is something like I'm not good enough for doing this, or who am I that I think I can create something like that. Find someone who can support you in clearing this kind of beliefs. There are coaches there that do this kind of work to create another mindset around your own identity. So, and then, of course, find communities, as you said, like see people on a regular basis that inspire you, where you can share your thoughts and, create to have another mindset around certain kind of topics.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. And I think, what I've heard a lot when I've done this kind of sessions in the corporate innovation world is people say, yeah, but I'm doing the work and I am working on my mindset. I'm being more creative. I'm more self-reflective. But what happens when, I have a challenging boss or I have difficult people who are not delivering? What do I do? And that's the number one question I feel gets in the when I do sessions in the corporate world. And as you said, I think, we cannot change other people, but we can change our behaviors. And I think in those moments, it's good to have a community that you go to who understands you, who helps you through these processes. Because, in the day-to-day world, we're not going to be around people who are all enlightened and, on this journey of self-discovery. It's not going to happen. But if we have our community, our mentor, our coach that can help us navigate this path, we come back, refreshed and rejuvenated to kind of shapeshift in the world that we, created.
Yeah, and I see that this is kind of a mobile. As soon as we change our behavior and our thoughts, then everything that is connected with us will change as well.
Yeah.
Of course, we cannot change other people, but they will react in a different way when we act in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why the very first key I talk about, my very first chapter is our self-awareness is the first future self-awareness of AI, which is the more we are self-aware, the more we're going to be collaborating with AI, with technology, with people in a much more effective way. And it all starts with self-awareness.
Yeah. So you also said that you are hosting a podcast.
Yes.
Let me know a little bit about that. What is a podcast about, and who is your audience? Who are your listeners? Share a little bit.
So I've gone through a bit of a transformation. So I started 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago during COVID. And it was actually at that time, it was branded under Yogipreneurs, which is I have a non-for-profit where I connected ideas around yoga into entrepreneurship. And at that point, I was primarily focused on interviewing yogis or meditation guides or entrepreneurs who had a certain mindset that was like, this is really interesting. And that was my first season. And then I went for a little bit of a transformation, and then I started looking more about entrepreneurship. So season 2 is more focused on bringing this mindset and approach into the world of corporates through entrepreneurship. And then, so quite funnily enough, this year I actually started developing entrepreneurship programs. And then, but this season is really connected to my book, Collaborating with Life, which is, really the principles of how do we collaborate with technology. But actually I talk about, again, the conversations that we have, which is about seeing nature as our mentor. I talk about, the role of self-awareness. I interview cybersecurity experts, talk about like the risks of AI, but from a very kind of ethical perspective. So that I hope that my audience is very mixed. It's everyone from entrepreneurs to innovators to people on their own spiritual journey. But I think ultimately it's people who want to do innovation differently, and I think really realize that it's done through inner work. And then when we do it in inner work, as you said, it shifts the outer. And I've seen this countless times with people I've worked with or people that I really admire, it isn't necessarily about hard work or, putting in the long hours or grit. It's a certain something, a mindset, the kind of the aura, the approach that certain people have that gets things done, which is very inspiring. And I've seen this in people that I've worked very closely with. And it's more about like, how do we bring that in not just to innovate for the sake of innovation, but to innovate with purpose, which I think is, the kind of content that my audience is very interested in.
Yeah, and I see that people are now inspired to get a little bit know more about where they can find you. So where are you on your social media? Where is the podcast? How can they connect with you? Can you share this?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is always good. So I'm Mia Jafari. I have obviously Fluid Labs LinkedIn. I have fluidlabs.com, which is my website. There's a link to all my podcast recordings. On Instagram, I have a link to the podcast and reels. People can join, if they message me, they can join the WhatsApp group where I update the community on like workshop sessions, events that I'm part of, but also events and sessions that the community is hosting. It's a very collaborative platform. So that's where they can find me.
Okay, I will put the links in the show
Perfect.
notes,
Thank you.
so that it's easy for everybody to connect with you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And last but not least, is there anything that you would like to share that I didn't ask you?
No, I think that's really perfect. And I think if anyone wants to learn more about me, I'd be very welcome to talk to them. I think to get started on that journey, there'll be maybe 3 books that I would recommend. One would be The Surrender Experiment. I think definitely worth reading that, by Michael J. Singer. I think The Code of an Extraordinary Mind, Good Vision Le Carre is again one of my favorite books. And I would say The Untethered Soul as well, if you're looking at the question of Who Am I by Michael J. Singer. I think what I would say is, curiosity is super important in innovation. I say, if you want to learn about innovation, we don't need to read innovation books necessarily. It's nice to read other books. So I think, if we're interested, for example, in creativity, is nice to read a book that's not about creativity. So I think the more we can diversify our thinking, the better. And another book that I would really recommend is Reinventing Organizations, which I think is one of my favorite books as well, on innovation and organizational structure. Yeah.
It's from Frederic Laloux.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I love these books as well. And I think most of them are in my library. So.
Oh, wow.
And hopefully your book will be in my library soon as well.
Yes, I would love to gift you one.
So thank you so much for being my guest today and inspiring my audience. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, hope to see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Subscribe now and be part of an amazing movement that is revolutionizing industries, protecting our planet, and is driving humanity towards a thriving and better future. Together, let's break business boundaries and ignite positive innovation. Join us today.